This is the Collaboration Dynamics Podcast, helping you work together better with Judy Rees, X-Ray listener, best-selling author, international virtual collaboration trainer, and master of metaphor. Hear more at xraylistening.com.
Hello and welcome to the Collaboration Dynamics podcast. My name's Judy Rees and with me today is Noam Kostucki. Hello, Noam.
Hi, Judy.
Noam, would you like to introduce yourself and what the kind of things you do in relation to collaboration?
Sure. So I believe that everything can be elevated into an art form. And so most of my work is coaching people to create masterpieces in their life and their work. And the other side of my work is that I create my own sort of little masterpieces. I write books. I've had 4 photo exhibitions. I'm now launching a new blog. And so a lot of my work is possible because people want to collaborate with me and because I've had fantastic people to collaborate with. And then also the clients that I work with, a lot of people that I coach and train, themselves, they lead teams. And they have to collaborate with other people. So it's very interesting for me to be able to see the collaboration from the work that I do with my clients directly, but also 1 and 2 steps removed.
Mm-hmm. And I think we need to say that you are in fact living the dream in Costa Rica.
Oh yeah, I do. I've moved about a year ago to Costa Rica, where I now live, and I do all my work from my little terrace, where I'm surrounded by palm trees and monkeys and squirrels and birds, and it is the best office I've ever had in my life.
So if there's the odd background noise, then we know what that is.
Exactly.
Excellent stuff. So let's start with the question I ask each of my interviewees. When you are collaborating at your best, that's like what?
It's like working alone. I know that when I was first thinking about this podcast, I sort of looked back at the notes that I wrote after thinking this answer this morning, and what I wrote, the first thing I wrote was, it's like life. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of very happy and pleased to see that the 2 answers seem to relate to each other. So hopefully there's at least some coherence here.
Mm-hmm. So when it's like working alone, what kind of working alone is that?
It's the kind of working alone in which you can't not do it. Mm-hmm. In that, when you work alone, whatever you do, whether you work in a team or whether you work alone, what you do is always what you do. Mm-hmm. So whether you work in a team or you work alone, you're really always working alone. Mm. And what you're doing is always what you're doing. So that's in that sense. You're working alone, or in a team, you're working alone. And at the same time, the other thing that comes to my mind is that when I work alone, there's all these voices in my head. Mm-hmm. I was watching this weekend the new Pixar animation Inside Out, which I was very, very pleased by, because finally it showed visually, I think, what it's like to work alone, which is that you're working in a team. Mm-hmm. You're collaborating. At least I'm collaborating between all the voices in my head, because there's a bunch of voices saying different things, and I've got to collaborate with them because I don't control these voices. So in that sense, I feel that, the more I think about it, the more working alone or working in collaboration seems to be the same thing. When I work alone, I'm stuck collaborating with the voices, and when I work with other people, I'm stuck having to work alone and do my things. Mm.
So when you're on your own, you're collaborating with the voices. When you're working with other people, you're working with the voices of the other people, and still stuck doing your thing.
Exactly.
Whatever you do. So you've got both the voices on the inside and the voices of the other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm. And so when you're working with other people, what happens to the voices inside you?
This is, I think, where it gets really interesting and where I used to have a lot of problems in my collaboration, actually, because I've had a lot of teams that I started. When I first went to Poland, I tried to put a team together for my first business 3 times, and it failed every single time. Then I put a team together for my second business, third business, whatever, in the UK when I got there, and that got better. It lasted for a few years. Some things really worked well. Some things didn't work well. And so every time it's getting better. And what I can definitely say is that the problem was that when I was working with other people, I didn't realize that I was also having to collaborate with all the different voices in my head. And so I was under the impression that when I was talking with one person, that it was one person talking to one person. And the moment I realized that actually it's a bunch of different collaborative voices speaking with a bunch of other collaborative voices, we started having much better conversation and much better collaboration, because we realized that different parts of our minds wanted to collaborate in different ways.
So there's not only your multiple voices, different parts, but also the other person's multiple voices.
Exactly.
And different parts wanted to collaborate in different ways.
Exactly.
And when there's more than 2 of you, then there's a whole other set, however many sets of voices.
And that's where it gets really interesting and complicated, because it's a social dynamic that happens at different levels. So people, and we see that when we're I'm just trying to think about a simple example. Because when we're in a situation where I'm trying now, I've been offered a new publishing deal. So a publisher reached out to me, and now I'm reaching out to my co-authors to say, hey, look, I've got this great offer to republish the books, and it's gonna be great. Now, when they receive the emails, both of them, or the 3 co-authors I've had, they're all thinking different things in their head. And so they've got one voice that says, oh, that's great, really nice, well done, he's bringing a new opportunity. They may have another voice that says, wait, he's trying to keep control here. He didn't ask me earlier, and this and that. And so there's a voice of fear, there's a voice of gratefulness. And now that person has to deal with that collaboration within their head. And I don't know which voice is going to come out at me. And the fact that he comes back to me saying, hey, I can't believe that you're just sending me the information now. Why didn't you invite me to the meeting with the publisher, etc.? It's my role to decide which of my voices is going to answer. And if I answer with the same voice, if it's fear against fear, then it becomes a disaster. So by understanding that they're also dealing with this collaboration within their head, I can then choose the best person within my team. And I see my team here being the voices in my head. Who's the best person in my team to reply back? And probably that replying with the mirror person wouldn't work. So I would probably have to find in myself the part of me that has more empathy, that can understand better. And then we have a dynamic where the part of me that has empathy will talk to the part of him that's scared. And then now we can shift, and now I can have a different part of me talk to a different part of him. And then we can have a real group discussion. And so with my clients, I often tell my clients that I feel that I'm doing team coaching when I'm coaching one person, because I get them to say, okay, the entrepreneur in you, what does he want? The father in you, what does he want? The husband in you, what does he want? The salesperson, what does he want? And then you have to deal with your own collaboration. So I don't know if I'm just rambling or if this makes any sense.
So an example of when that works really well, what would be a story about when that's worked really well for you?
So probably the way my first book was written is a great example, because it's also a great example of how these collaborations are both alone and a series of people working together, and a series of collaborations that come in and out. Because I wrote I got invited to give a TED talk in Poland. And then there's a big long story before that, but let's take it from there, because that's enough, I think. I got invited to give a talk to Poland. After that, someone saw the TED talk in America and contacted me to write an article about personal branding. The voice in my head that replied was actually, so my collaboration was actually very negative to start with, because the voice in my head was fear and was discomfort. And I was like, no, I don't know anything about this book. I don't know, anything about this topic. The person came back to me with a different voice, a voice that was more gentle, and said, hey, look, actually, put your name on Google, and would you mind having a half-hour interview to tell me how you do that? And so there's a different part of me that started talking to part of me that was like, oh yeah, I know about this. So now I started feeling more confident and more comfortable. I was like, yeah, sure, okay, I can talk about that. I don't know about personal branding, but I know about how to get the result you get on Google. And at the end of our conversation, I realized that actually I had a lot of interesting stuff. And then another voice in my head came up saying, hey, this is really good, actually. This interview is really nice. There's actually great content here. What if this guy wanted to write a book with you? And so I talked to him about it, and so he decided that he wanted to write a book with me. But another voice in his head said, hey, yes, okay, great. I want to write a book, but I don't have the time. And so now we're stuck because we needed one more person for the team. And that's when we said, hey, anyway, working in a team is working alone. So let's do this alone to start with, and then we'll see whoever is going to join the team. So we did a recording for, 15, 20 hours or something. He interviewed me for this time, and we put structures, etc. And then we had all these recording, and I looked for someone who was interested in writing a book and in transcribing the audio. And that's when a friend of a friend put us in touch with someone, and that person had their own voices going on in their head, which is that he really wanted a paid project. That was his goal. His goal was to be paid as an author. So that was the first kind of thing that came up, which is, hey, if I'm not paid for this, it's not useful. But then he had another voice in his head that said, I really want to write a book before I'm 30. Turned out he was 29. So suddenly he had this collaboration to go within his head. And eventually the part of him that won said, hey, you know what, being paid as a writer, that may come later. Let's do this thing first. And so I guess, and so that project has happened really by all of us working alone in a certain way, which is I did my own thing. The guy who interviewed me did his own thing. He was an interviewer. He had a blog. So he did his work alone in a way. I did my work alone. The transcriber did his work alone. In that he did the translation, send me the book back. I would make corrections, send it back to him, etc. But together we collaborated into the writing of the book. And so that's sort of how I see these two layers and these two things that may seem like the opposite of working alone and working in collaboration to really be part of the same thing.
And that's your example is so interesting. Well, the whole metaphor, the whole story around different voices is so interesting, because when I'm working with groups and teams, which the main thing I do these days, one of the skills that I'm constantly talking about is being able to say what you actually want. What's the richer angle from what you're talking about, the multiple voices, is that in order to say what you want, that's a non-trivial challenge if you've got multiple things that you want. And it's almost inevitable that all of us have multiple things that we want at any one time.
Yeah, I've never seen. I haven't yet met anybody who only wanted one thing at one time. And most of my experience of coaching people and having very deep conversations is that not only all of us want multiple things at the same time, but very often we want opposite things at
Hmm.
the same time. On one hand, we want to, yeah, be praised for our hard work, etc., etc., etc. But then on the other hand, we don't want to put effort and we prefer to spend time with friends and relax, for example.
Hmm.
Uh, they're in opposition, and we can want both. So yeah, so I think that it makes it very complex. And I guess that was probably the reason for which when you first asked me about collaboration, I was like, whoa, I don't know anything about collaboration. I can't figure that shit out because there's just way too many voices, way too many levels. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, I really don't know. There's just too many parameters. Um, so yeah, I'm always amazed by people who have always found it very natural and easy to work in collaboration in under different, I guess, structures and models.
Hmm. And yeah, the whole thing about, I suppose, if it's easy for someone to collaborate with the voices in their own head, presumably they can map that model across to working with the
Hmm.
voices in someone else's head.
Absolutely. I find that it helps me a lot to ask people questions about the different voices and to
Hmm.
say, so the part of you that wants to make money, what does that part of you want?
Hmm.
The part of you that wants to make other people happy, what does that part of you want?
Hmm.
The child in you, what does he want? The husband or the mother in you, what does she want? And by asking these specific questions and say, or the accountant in you,
Hmm.
what does the accountant want? Oh, the accountant wants, these things to be organized. And so that way I can get people to write down, and especially when people make the effort of writing down their answers, it becomes really interesting because they gain an amazing insight. And the moment they can see the different answers, then we can actually have a conversation where it's a lot easier for me to understand them, yeah, because they understand themselves a lot better.
Mm. So one of the things that one might choose, if you're choosing a collaborative team, is self-awareness in the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
The more they're able to be aware of the multiple things that they want, the more effective they're likely to be as collaborators.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Because they're less likely to instantly speak from a place of fear without even considering the other things that are going on.
Yes, that's a very interesting one. Yeah, that probably what goes wrong most of the time in teams is when people start speaking from a place of fear, and where it seems that fear is the only voice that everybody has. And then we can't come to any kind of reasonable discussions. For talking about books, actually, there's another interesting example that's happened recently that may highlight the other side of the story. So a friend of mine was talking to me, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago about a book that she wants to write. And when she told me about it, I was like, that sounds amazing. That's exactly one of the topics that I'm exploring for my next book.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to write it together? Would you like to collaborate on this? Because that's how I wrote 2 of my 3 books. And I think that the 2 books where I collaborated with other people are way better than the one I did on my own. They're just massively better. And I guess the proof in the pudding, which is that the publisher only agreed to republish the first and the third book, which I wrote with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of going like. So her answer just blew me away because she said, "Oh no, I would. I really." She was like, "I really want to do this alone." And I understood what she wanted to say, and what she wanted to say on the sort of social level. And this is where we have the different voices. The voice on the social level is well, I always collaborate. I do stuff with other people. I want this feeling of pride, this feeling that I have done this on my own and nobody helped me, and I can be proud of my achievement. But then I couldn't help but ask the seemingly obnoxious questions, which were, oh, great, so you're going to write the book alone. So you're going to also print the book on your own? You're also going to build a computer that you're going to write the book on your own? Or you're going to maybe make the pencil and make the paper on your own? And are you going to also make the electricity that you're going to use for light and for the computer on your own? And the look on her face was a sort of a disbelief of how obnoxious I am. But I think that I really still believe that there is a deep, profound thought behind that, which is that we can't do anything alone. We can't not collaborate. I mean, I can't do, as a human being, we're one of the very few animals that really can't survive alone. Babies can't survive alone. We're a social animal. I can't do all the things on my own. I rely on other people to bring me water, to make my mosquito repellent, and to provide me with internet and electricity. So even when I feel like I'm doing stuff on my own, I'm never doing stuff on my own, because the only reason I can, quote unquote, do something on my own is because all these other people are collaborating with me.
So we can't not collaborate.
We cannot collaborate, and we can't not work alone.
And fundamentally, working on your own at one level is an illusion, because you have to rely on other people to produce the light and the electricity and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Which, and at the same time, I think that working in collaboration is also somehow an illusion.
Because you're always working on your own. Say more about that, working on your own.
Sorry, say more about the working on your own?
Say more about how working in collaboration is also an illusion. How, in fact, you're always working on your own.
Well, because that's the other thing that that got me into problems when I worked in teams, and when I tried building teams, that I was trying to take responsibility for other people's work. But that doesn't work, because they work on their own. They do whatever they want. I can't make them do what I want. I can inspire them, and and there's I spend a lot of my my coaching years and my sort of consulting time and all of that sort of reading and learning about how to influence people, how to inspire. Because I thought maybe that's a way to collaborate. But now that I look back, I'm like, this is not a way to collaborate. That's just trying to make other people, turn other people into minions. Turn other people into an extension of me. But they're still doing work on their own. They're still doing the work they want, and I can't take responsibility for their work. All I can do is take responsibility for my work, do my work, communicate with them in the best way possible, and communicate the best way to the different parts of them. But until I realize that I'm responsible for my work and my work only, and I can't take responsibility for someone else's work, before I realized that, I was just miserable, because I was always asking myself questions like, why isn't this person doing this like this? Why isn't she on time? Why isn't this happening? Why aren't they collaborating the way I want? Well, because they're collaborating on their own way. They're on their own. And so, yeah, so that's this interesting thing, and it sort of relates to a quote by Lao Tzu that was sent to me by I'm now looking for someone to actually join my team. I just put out a new job offer, and I've had some amazing application and responses, because this time I look at this as a collaboration in a very different way than I did before. I didn't really present it as a job. I presented as, I want someone to go on this journey with me. And so the responsibility is very different. And one girl sent me a letter saying that a quote by Lao Tzu that says that true leadership is when other people say we've done it on our own.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's kind of where I feel that it's coming back together. The teamwork is we've done it on our own. We've done it alone. And even as a team, whenever a team achieves something, and I've got clients who work with big teams, well, they tell me that they achieved it alone as a team, right? Which is kind of funny. We achieved this alone as a team.
Yes. It was just us.
It was just us. Which I think is the same as what we say when we say I've done this alone. It's me and all the voices in my head. And even at the country level, I've heard people say that as a country. As a country, we've done this alone. And it's really interesting how the human mind can see a group of things as a unit. And I guess that's what we do all the time. Because I never talk about me as we. I talk about me as I, as if I was one person. But really, I'm a bunch of little units, whether it's the cells or the voices in my head. So I think that maybe the biggest problem with collaborating with other people is the illusion of being able to work alone. And the same way, the other way around.
Fascinating. Thank you very much indeed for all of that. That's my head is almost exploded, but not quite. But really interesting things to think about there. Thank you very much for that. Now we're coming to the end of our time. Now I need to say that this recording is likely to be published significantly later than it's actually being recorded. So there's no point applying to Noam for a job at this juncture. But well, it might be. You might have a million jobs by the time.
You never know.
So, if people do want to get in touch with you and talk to you about this or about any of your ideas or find out about your coaching, those kind of things, who should contact you and how can they contact you?
So I would say there's two main things. One is people who are at a stage of being ready to create a second act in their lives. So someone who's been successful in his or her field, who've achieved something that they're proud of, and that they're like, wow, I've built experience, I've built a network, I've got expertise in a field. I know I can do stuff. What's next? How do I take everything I've built, all the resources I've created for myself, to create something extraordinary with the rest of my life, with the second half of my life? So that's the kind of people to reach out to me for private coaching. Those are people that I work with on one-on-one coaching. People ready for this second act, who want to create something extraordinary in their life, their masterpiece, really their life's masterpiece. And for everyone else who's kind of not there yet on the journey and who looks forward to getting to that stage, So for that first group, for the first group, the best way to contact me is redefiners.com. So if you're ready for your second act, redefiners.com, you can reach out to me and we'll have a conversation. For everyone else, what I'm doing is I've created a blog with some e-learning courses, email coaching courses, online groups that you can learn from, ebooks, etc., so that you can get yourself to be ready to do your second act. And so for you, the best place to go to is artofamagicallife.com.
Artofamagicallife.com.
Exactly. So wherever you are in the journey, hopefully there's a little something I can provide that you can learn from, that can be useful. And if you haven't found it, reach out to me, and I may know someone who can collaborate on that idea.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much indeed for a fascinating conversation. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Judy.